on
It's
with
okay.
two
It's okay.
with two instruments. Now it's fine.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so I left and go back.
Welcome.
Okay, so I hope everybody has enough energy to conclude this event for this very interesting topic now, which is innovation culture. So first of all, I wanted to thank you very much, Musin, for keeping the agenda on time, which is not sometimes very easy because we have a lot of questions, and also all the speakers, because I found this very interesting. And what I have very much appreciated is the way that people are expressing. They really want to share with the others, which is a good spirit, and very much appreciate on my side. I want also to thank Cesar, Emiliano, and Carolina, who have made some specific effort in order to prepare this panel. I hope we are going to enjoy it. Okay, so innovation culture, it's something that is sometimes a question of surviving, or sometimes something that is helping the companies to move to another speed. And I hope that we are going to try to explain you not what we believe that innovation is, because we have to be modest on this, but maybe to share our experience. So far, innovation could be very large, very broad. It could be a technical innovation, but it could be also go to a new kind of business model. So innovation is quite everywhere, and it's important. So far with my colleagues, we are going to focus on the two particular topics, on Agile for innovation product and how to explore new channel. So we are going to start with Cesar. So you start to know Cesar because Cesar was just speaking this morning. So Cesar is at the head of the production innovation factory at Accor. He is based in France, but he's Spanish. So Cesar, maybe you can explain us how you are using Agile to foster innovation?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, basically, Agile was born around software. As you might know, I mean, the original document is the Agile Manifesto for Software Development. But basically, it's a philosophy. So if you abstract somehow these four values into things that are more general and not just for software, and that comes to something like putting humans in the center of your processes and your products. It deals with adding value and looking for value and not for other topics like, for example, documentation, or it would be around also things like keeping users in the loop, for example, and probably also the concept of iterating. So if you take all these four values in a more abstract way, and not just for software, they are extremely good for an innovation culture. These are things that you absolutely need to have and to set up a culture around innovation, being user-centric, iterating, keeping the user in the center, adding value. It makes total sense. But that being said, it is true that Agile is very much oriented towards production and towards production of software or whatever else. And it is just like Lean for process optimization. So it is useful, but if you're using an Agile framework, Scrum, it might be somehow constraining for everything that is more uncertain and more on the exploration side, for example.
Yeah, thank you. So do you have a concrete example that you can help us to illustrate the usage of Agile in Accor?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my team, for example, when I arrived at Accor, the team was full Scrum. I don't know if you know what Scrum is, but it's one of the frameworks that uses Agile. So it's very strict. So you have sprints. So every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it depends on how you define it, but every 2 weeks, you deliver something, you deliver a product, and then there are rituals, and you measure the capacity of the team to handle tasks. For example, it's called the burn down. So people think that Agile is usually chaotic and free. It's quite the opposite. I mean, most of the frameworks are extremely rational, extremely organized, extremely squared. And my team was actually, and we started working with Scrum, and it was good to produce. I mean, again, Scrum aims to have predictability, for example, aims to have a quality of code, aims to have things that are extremely positive for a product, but that do not really match always with an innovative process. And we soon had to change and switch and have a dual track and work both ways. and switch to something more flexible, something more Kanban inspired, but in the end, very much optimized, very much customized to our needs. And the whole point was to try to, okay, keep this good philosophy of Agile, but still be able to absorb uncertainty, to absorb the exploration, to absorb things that are not really oriented towards production. So Agile, sure, is a good philosophy to foster innovation, but you have to be careful with the practice, because otherwise it can become a constraint and not an enabler. And practices that actually will help you more around this exploration phase are things like design thinking, things like brainstorming, lean startup. There are many techniques that you can use that are not really agile in itself, but still, if you keep the mentality, the philosophy, and the values behind Agile, it will always help you to industrialize and to produce afterwards whatever you envision or you do in the innovation process.
Okay, thank you, Cesar. So maybe on the same subject, Carolina, maybe you can give us your experience with Agile. So Carolina, so you are Global Product Director of the New Generation Technology at Nestlé, based in Spain.
Yeah.
So if you can give us your view on this particular
Sure.
point.
So I work in the technology part of Nestle. I'm going to be talking about what we do in R&D, which is where we come up with the new products that then people can buy in the grocery store. And very connected to what Cesar was saying, right? Once you have things like kind of ready to go to production, the frameworks get more kind of stable and more close as it should be. But in the early days, when we're thinking of like we are in the lab coming up with flavors or new products like foods and beverages, we need other kinds of techniques and methodologies to do that. So I want to give you a specific example of a program that we're calling the Accelerator. And the name is spot on because we're basically accelerating the time to market for some of our products. Coming up, from the idea in the lab to the shop might take like many months and sometimes years. And with this program, we're making it from the lab to the shop within 6 months. How are we doing that? This is a combination of 4 things. Number one is that there are 4 very established entry doors, so types of things that can be accelerated, others cannot, right? For example, if we have an insight on science that can be translated into a product, like, plant-based food as a replacement of meat, for example, that would be an example of a science. If we have a trend that we can pioneer with an offer that's differentiated, that would be another one. Or if we really have an idea of a product and we want to test desirability for that, right? Like, will the whatever flavor of Kit Kat work? Well, that Kit Kat we know how to manufacture, right? So it's something that we can accelerate. So first, knowing what kinds of things we can accelerate. Then having diverse and autonomous teams so that they can do the having dependencies from others. And we have a mix of employees, startups, and also students from universities. And they have their own budget, they have coaching on the methodologies so they don't get lost. And then we have those methodologies, let's just mention a couple of them, right? Design thinking for the ideation piece, lean startup, which for the ones who don't know, it's like a cycle where you build something, you measure, you learn, and then you get back to building if what you learn is not good enough, right? We have other techniques as well. We do growth hacking for those things that are digital, so we can test that desirability before launching. Where you can like pretend you're launching something and test how many people would actually buy it, right? I don't know, there are lots of things like consumer interviews, business model design, lots of tools and artifacts that you can use, but basically for that, from the idea to the shop within 6 months. And something that we also have is clear success criteria. Like, we measure things. So we measure on 3 fronts. First is the fit of the problem to the solution, then the product market fit, and then the learnings. The learnings are super important. How many learnings did we validate? A hypothesis did we validate? That's really good for each of the innovations that we do, but also for the future. So the next time that we do this acceleration process, we will have learned some things and we will not bump into the same problems again, right? So examples of metrics for problem solution fit. So for example, if we are advertising something, that would be the conversion rate, right? A product market fit, we measure a lot the shelf rotation. If you put a product that people like, it's going to fly away and then you have to refill, right? So that's a metrics. Or if we are selling through e-commerce, that would be the average order value, the conversion rate on e-commerce. So even if it's a very accelerated early stage innovation, you have to measure things. Otherwise, you don't know how well you're doing. Right?
Thank you, Carolina. So we discussed with the teams, and there is some kind of a message that we want to pass. And one of them is that to be innovative is to be open, sensitive, and understand the final solution. And it's important to create a kind of ecosystem, to have a broader view of all the vertical expectation of the end user. Yep. So with this visibility, creating an ecosystem could be a kind of a virtual teams that is not necessary only from internal resources. It's also important to see how we can have external support from academia, standard and alliance, startup, partners, customer even could participate to the innovation. So this is something which is important, and addressing the second point, which is how to explore new channel. So Emiliano Frattini, which is part of the groups, and is a global technology and manufacturing engineer manager at GKN Automotives. Maybe you can tell us how you have addressed this particular issue of virtual teams, Emiliano.
Yes, Gerard. Do you hear me right?
Yes, very well.
And yes, in fact, the virtual team is something which is always existing. So is already there. The task is really to identify it, to identify the right one that can target the specific needs of the company. Identify the virtual team is very hard if we don't know how to manage, because this can be based everywhere. And I mean, we can start looking partners in the World Wide Web, in some global database aggregators, in some publications to see who is publishing something, companies' content, or startup ecosystems. So it's a legacy of information available, but to build the team, if we are not engaged or skilled to do that, there are some potential supporters in the market that can do this for us. And in fact, there are some startup scouting partners that can really help, and this is some direct experience, building this virtual team according to the needs we are declaring them. And they are doing, finally, they can do this job for us. You know, I'm coming from a manufacturing environment, and really for me to understand all of these things and to find the right target to research how to build the team is very hard. I need to study something new for me, which I don't have time to. So to shortening the activity to building the team, we can just ask to those startup scouting to do this for us. And this allows directly to reach any potential possibility to address my targets in the market with a complete, wider and targeted approach. And software, they are using software for sure.
So do you have an example on the way you built teams?
Yes, in the manufacturing environment, we are targeting and we challenge every time manufacturing cost reduction and capacity increase. That's the target of this area of the business. And there is a portion of the business in manufacturing which is quality. Quality is really important because the quality failure can create high cost, unexpected and unplanned cost in the field, working especially with this large amount of customer globally. So the smart quality is a very interesting area where to develop new business and new projects, and means to remove and to stop doing something we do today manually with operators can be done automatically with new technology, but we don't have new technology still. So we need to look in the market what is available there, which could be the direct partner that is researching something completely new, okay, which is not really still able to be implemented. And this can be done if we look in some startups or new publication from the university. So what is new in the market and how we build this team was exactly this activity.
So do your customers participated to the new, we say, process, innovated process?
In this case, we are targeting something completely new in the market. This means we will target some patents behind. Okay, so customers will be for sure approached as soon we have a clear understanding of the potential global deployment of the project. So the virtual team has been built, the project is planned, and what we are able to do with this solution, with this partner, exactly targeted by this startup scouting, is to do in-house development. So startups, they need resource and fundings. So a big company like we are, as all the companies are in this meeting yesterday and today, we are able to support the startups with fundings and to do in-house development on our products. So this will give the possibility to be completely 50-50 partner of the new discovery of this new application.
Okay. So that means that you host the startup in your facilities.
Indirectly, yes, having the technology evolving in our facility. Okay. And this was possible just to opening the mind to this external contribution with this virtual, let's say, team, as they are able to build for us. Yeah.
Another key message that we want to pass with the colleagues is that in order to be successful in innovation, we need to have the management support. So we need to have also people who are ready to take the risk, trust in the innovators, and also have a listen attitude in order to move forward. So Cesar, do you have any kind of example of successful programs where management was fully involved and supportive?
Well, definitely. I mean, and I suppose I share the same experience like Carolina. I mean, all these structures, all these innovation structures, they need a full support from management, and that's why most of them, they have their own budgets and they are completely independent from running budgets, for example. And that's a key message of support, saying, okay, we trust you, we give you this budget, we trust you on the methods, but, like she said also, we will watch for the results. And that's the important part also. But definitely, I mean, just the existence of these teams inside big companies is a measure of trust, and it's a measure of support. And without that, then yeah, I mean, it's not that innovation is impossible, but it's clearly not made it easy. So
yeah.
Okay,
there is every time a small risk doing innovation. That's the beat every time.
Absolutely. So that means that, just to summarize, Emiliano and Cesar, is that one, we need to create a kind of virtual teams that it is made of all the stakeholders that could help to innovate, because the complexity of the technology now is as such that nobody can have the pretension to develop everything by their own, and even customers need to be involved. And as Cesar mentioned, management support, it is required. Another question for you, Carolina, is regarding the visibility about the target. What we discussed and we understood is that we cannot be in abstract views of trying to improve a local process, but we need to have a complete views of the problems, even in order to serve the end users, and trying to not having, we say, a step-by-step improvement, but having a big gap of innovation. Do you have some examples that you can illustrate on this particular view? That means that your trends will be focused on the end user capability and request?
Yeah. So, for example, we have a very important goal towards sustainability, right? And that is the most end-to-end process there is in a food company, because it goes from sourcing the produce, like the cocoa, the coffee, all the way down to what consumers do then with the packaged goods, and how they dispose of the packaging, right? And
Some connection issue.
on the so that is, yeah. So we're having. Can you hear me?
Carolina, you got off, but now fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I got one of these pop-ups that my connection wasn't stable. Okay. Now I was saying that sustainability is one of the things that's driving more like this end-to-end view that we need to have, because it goes from the farm to the fork and then beyond, because we sell packaged goods. So the containers of those packages, then how they are disposed of by the consumers, and that is changing a lot of the ways of working that we have as a company, where the kind of more verticalized or silos activities that in the past helped us optimize like locally now have to be integrated, let alone implementing AI, which is also a great integrator of end-to-end processes, because you need to understand the challenge or the opportunity end-to-end and to get the data as well. And those are massive change management programs, by the way.
I have just one question for you, Carolina, in order to complete what you have presented yesterday. So you have already presented that you are, I would say, included intelligence artificial on a lot of different process, but the intelligence of the machine is more or less fed by the intelligence of the human. So how did you put this, I would say, link between the people who are participate to the development and the automatization of the process?
So the use cases that I presented yesterday, they all of them actually have a human, what's called a human in the loop, right? When you do AI, you can have the human in the loop, you can have the human out of the loop, that would be fully automated, nobody's watching, or the human over the loop, right? So we're starting with the human in the loop, for example. But years ago in some of the factories, we used to, and some of them we still do, kind of load the pallets. Somebody was driving a palletizer and loading the pallets. That's the human. You're doing that and overseeing that the pallets are all right, right? We are automating that, and now we have palletizers that are, self-driving palletizers. But we still have somebody watching. Now the next thing to automate is the anomaly detection with cameras, but those cameras will still trigger an alert for somebody to go there and see what's going on, right? And that's keeping the human in the loop. So in operation, that's how we keep the humans in the loop. When we design the things, artificial intelligence is actually built by humans, by nature. Humans get the data, select it, train the models. So, and then you have a model that is able to detect patterns and make some sort of decision on them, right? So in building the AI, for sure, there's a lot of humans actually, but in our operations as well.
Yeah, because sometimes the strategy is quite easy to develop, but the implementation of the strategy is sometimes more difficult because you can have resistance.
Right. Well, that's another topic, right? In terms of when you are automating things, then some jobs are made redundant. But that happened as well when we automated the factories, and some people that were just loading and unloading trays, that was done by a conveyor belt, right? And so we repurposed those positions into more value added. It's the same thing that's happening now with, broader automation assisted by AI, but it's automation at the end of the day.
Okay. So Cesar, based on your experience, did you have some, we say, challenges in order to complete your innovation process and the one that you explained this morning?
Definitely. I mean, there are many challenges, and one of the main ones, and it goes somehow with one of the questions that is on the chat, is the ROI, so the return of investment. And how do you prove that something is going to work if the whole point of your work is actually verifying if it's true or not? And that's a big question. I mean, and it's key to have, I mean, most projects, they have the KPIs, right? The key performance indicators. I focus a lot on the key learning indicators. And it goes again back with what Karina was saying, is that the important thing after an exploration project is to learn something. It's not really to produce. I mean, it's always nice to produce, and it's always nice to have some income and to have something that scales and it works worldwide. And that's the ideal scenario. But if you look at the outside, for example, in the startup world, 9 out of 10 startups will die after 10 years, or after 5 years. And why can we not accept that kind of behavior in a company? That's a good question. And it is true that it depends a lot on the culture of the company, on the financial liberty that they have at the moment. But that's definitely one of the main blockages or stones in the road when you start a product innovation initiative, how to prove that this has a potential when you actually don't really know, and that's why you are testing it, to prove that it has.
And Emiliano, regarding innovation, so one of the important topics is that everything that we discuss right now means that the company cannot have an innovation by point, but it is a real culture for the company. So you have to involve management, all the different stakeholders inside of the company, but as you mentioned, typically a few minutes ago, also virtual teams that include external companies.
Yes.
So according to that, do you have any kind of example where you have a complete teams and the support of the management and that it leads to the success?
Yeah, that project I was explaining before very roughly is one where I had some direct experience, not really good because the culture is still, and I think this is one really strong point of this today discussion, not one of the very strong. Culture is not something can be changed with one project. What I'm trying to do is to really beat a lot in this project and disclose later what means changing the culture. Okay, this is something which is still not, let's say, taken as a footprint in the plant, in the company. Okay, so culture is coming as example, means having some good results, and is probably not the better way, but is a way to force it.
Okay.
Otherwise, you should have a specific, and what can be done, have a specific department in the company exactly doing this with resources dedicated to change of culture. And this is something which is still not under the, is still at the other side of the clouds. We still not see that. And we need to fight project to project. Yeah? So that's is a way on, as I see, on manufacturing side.
Yeah. So just to summarize, and I will ask my colleagues to complement. So from what we have understood, the successful innovation company encourage and organize people creativity. This is clear that this is important to put a particular environment in order to have people creative. If you are in the manufacturing, you can speak louder and things could move faster. But if you need to have engineers thinking, you need to have a complete environment where you feel comfortable, you feel secure, you feel supported by the management. The innovation cannot be stick to only one particular step, but you need to be a complete views until the requirement of the end user. And sometimes when I say end user is maybe not our direct user, but the user of the user, in order to better understand what are the expectations. Innovation cannot be stick within the company. It is important to have a broader view of what we are going to serve, such that we will be able to have these virtual teams. So just to summarize in one word, innovation is a company culture. This is something that needs to be really built from the beginning and let people. And there is some company are much more, I would say, innovative than the other. So we need maybe to learn about it. So I don't know, Cesar, Carolina, or Emiliano, if you want to complete.
I think that's exactly the point.
Sorry, I was going to say that comment on the piece that innovation is part of the company's DNA. One thing that has worked really well for Nestle, and we started a few years ago, is to establish an employee-driven innovation and get ideas directly from the employees. Our workforce is huge, and they're on the factory floors and driving the trucks and running the sales, and that has proven tremendous in terms of getting really great innovations to production that have been successful.
Okay, thank you, Cesar. You wanted to conclude?
Well, definitely. I mean, and there's one quote from Eric Schmidt, so one of the founders of Google, that I really liked, and I remember I put it in the wall in the team, and it is that innovation cannot be ordained; it has to be allowed, and that goes with the culture thing. I mean, you cannot tell people now you have to innovate, but you have to create an environment and a culture that allows them to naturally and spontaneously do it.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, I say that is exactly the point, as you say, Gerard. And one word sometimes upper management doesn't like to see is dream. And dreaming sometimes makes the difference, but is a word which doesn't like in many business areas.
Okay, so I believe that we are open for question, if there is any. Musim, we have question?
Yes. I know this is the only time we extended the time because we were missing a speaker, so we have time still 10 minutes, 5 minutes for Q&A. I would like to ask, just I know, Luke, if Luke has a question, Luke Savage, Luke, you have the mic to ask a question. No question, guys, we have 5 minutes for Q&A. Paul, no question. It seems they don't have any. The last chance. Yeah, this is the final call for questions.
I think it's just more of an observation. I was just thinking.
Yes, you see the question from Lola. She typed there from. Wait a second. Lola's question was. From your experience, what percentage effort goes to a failure outcome and is okay from the management? What kind of a percentage? And knowing as well the value and insights you get from a failure experience is huge. You can see this question in the chat box from Lola Jovaudan. From Lola Jivaudan in the chat box, if you look.
Okay, yes, I can see it. I don't know if my colleagues want to answer to it, but I can tell you that...
Failure one?
Yeah, regarding the failure, but I can just have a comment that it is clear that in Europe, you have a different mindset than, for example, in the US. When you are failing in the US, people feel that you learn a lot. When in Europe, it's more difficult to be accepted. It looks like that you are a loser. But I believe that Lola is fully agreed that, in fact, failure is also a way to learn how to not do anything. So I have a good story on that. There is a kind of experience when you put some mounts in the rain measure, so in the rainer, and there is a mounts who found the exit very quickly, and the other who were not able to go. So they took back all the mounts and they start the process again. So they discovered that the people who are found the mouse that found the exit first time, they were not able to find it again. But the mouse who found the round path sometimes didn't find the exit, but never make the same mistake. So that in that, even if you are mistaken something, you learn how to not to do something. So this is a kind of a huge investment. So what are the percentage? It's difficult to say. It depends of the company. If it is a startup, you can be killed. If it is a big company, you can sustain it. But Carolina, you wanted to answer.
Yeah, I can give a number. So for example, in technology-driven innovation, out of the POCs that we do, I would say that about a third of them make it all the way up to scale. And then the other 70%, either they fail or they make it to smaller scale. They become local solutions somewhere, right? But making it to scale for us means like planetary scale. So I think it's a really good number. Usually the number of things that make it like that is about 10%. Numbers are also, don't get fooled by the number, because the higher the number, the lower the risk you're taking in innovating on things, right? And the more incremental innovation is, because if you're doing more disruptive innovation, then the odds of being successful are lower. That's why it's called disruptive. But then the gain is much higher, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 1/3 is not so bad, because if you see the successful startup, it is even lower. So.
I know, but we're not comparing apples to apples. If we do a lot of incremental innovation, where the chances of success are higher, the difficulty is then how to scale at a cost and price point that's the right one.
Absolutely. Cesar, you wanted to answer to this? Or?
Yeah, it's difficult to give a number, and again, like Carolina said, it goes very much with the culture of the company and the financial means that they have. I mean, from experience, I've seen all the cases. I've worked in an oil and gas company in the past with big pockets. So let's be honest, and they could afford more disruptive and exploratory subjects with lower return on investment or more risk. Accor, even though they are not a small company, they do not have that many means, and they were looking much more for ROIs. So most of the times, for example, it would have been more a ratio between how many projects you have done in the year that were successful, so that would allow you to try something else, so that at the end of the year, when you do the overall picture and you rediscuss the budgets for next year, you have something to show that, okay, there's something there, so don't cut the budget. So I can't give you a number. It's again with the culture of the company. If it's a company that is already very much towards innovation, they will probably allow failure and encourage failure. If they're still not there and transforming, which is the case of most traditional companies, then you have to be careful, because if you fail too much, you will be seen as, sadly, a failure, even if you are learning and it's not, but it takes time.
Thanks a lot. One more question can we have? I know you are tired, yeah, but just last question. Ricardo from Shell, having the last question. Ricardo, you have the mic. Can you join? Ricardo. Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you. Yes.
Now? Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot. Really interesting. And let me go back just one small piece what Cesar was saying in the beginning regarding Agile. And I really liked it, because he really hit me when you say, Agile, even the name go through something, an inspiration, let's say. And sometimes you feel trapped in more bureaucracy than it was before due to the Agile process. So I'm struggling there. Do you have any comment, suggestion in how to handle this, Agile becoming actually not so Agile?
Well, yeah, I can answer, of course. And the real answer for that is that Agile is a philosophy, so you have to adapt to your own needs. And most of the time, people take frameworks, take Canvas, take Scrum, take SAFe, and they apply it line by line without actually considering their own needs. And what you should do, and probably is the start, is that it's just, I mean, there's only one thing that is non-negotiable with Agile or even Lean, and it's the continuous improvement. And that's the only thing. And everything else, the rituals, the bureaucracy, everything else, it's negotiable. And the way you work, the way you track advancement. And the important, again, is to keep the values in mind, because the values are very human-centered. So these are universal, I would say. But then the practices, it has to be up to you. And you cannot apply something that worked for another company, because it might not work for you. And the example, everyone talks about the Spotify model. It doesn't work everywhere else other than Spotify, because they are unique. They have a unique business model. They have a unique product. If you try to do that at Shell, it will not work. but you have to take into account your specificities and what you want to achieve with the Agile philosophy and build your own framework.
Yeah, I'm afraid I didn't make my question properly. I fully agree with what you say. My point is, how can I put that in the head of some IT guys? Because you know, then yeah, but I need to, and it become really a mixture between what should be and what it actually is. And it's, I find hard that cultural change that is required. That it's pretty obvious in your words, isn't it? It's just you should understand the spirit, not the letters, but yeah.
I have a question for you. Do you have someone animating, a Scrum Master animating the retrospective meetings, for example?
Yes.
Because if you do, these retrospective meetings should be the place where your team should manifest the unease with some of the practices, or that some of these practices are not working, and that's exactly the point where you should consider them. And it should be organic. So if it's not happening, then it means that there's something wrong in the way these meetings are handled. Otherwise, you should, as a product, I suppose you are in the product side or the tech leads, they should raise the problem that something is not working. And the whole team should work on another way to do it. And if it's not happening, it's because this meeting, which is, I told you, the core thing, is not working properly. And probably needs some facilitation, needs some external view, external person to animate that.
I'll give it a try. Thanks a lot. I like your idea to use the retrospective meeting that sometimes is just sort of boring in a more right way. Thanks a lot, really, Cesar. Thanks.
Our some opinion?
Yeah, no, I just think it's very it's a superb conversation. But I think we talk about culture change and innovation. I think the real point behind all of this was you have to provide the space for it to actually happen, and that has to come from belief. People have to believe that you're going to give them the opportunity. I think Carolina spoke to it yesterday in her piece when she talked about sometimes it gets messy, you know, when you're putting this thing to scale, but actually you get solutions that you never expected because you allowed that flexibility, that space in the process. And I think that's the nature of Agile as well, to your point as well, where you have to apply it to what your needs, and you can have, you know, you've got to have the criteria for success, you've got to have the vision, people then have to believe that. And the only way that they'll ever believe it is you have to then go through it. You have to believe that the process, the thing that you're doing is the right thing to do. And then everybody's got to be working to the same goal. And the only way that they're going to believe that that's going to happen is jump in. So there's always a point where you've just got to do it. And by then doing it, people will create that space, create the ideas, create suggestions, and provide their discretionary effort, you know, throughout the process. And that seems to be the most exciting part of the whole thing. It doesn't happen otherwise. There's lots of people that like to talk about change management, but that's all it is. You have to just believe in what you're doing, and then really work very hard at it. So no question, just an observation.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. I see you are running out of time. I'm so happy you all joined us till now. I reshared the link for LinkedIn page of the participants of this year, because till next year, I will not be able to serve you for another Smart Industry Summit. Please join that link. Wish you a nice weekend, and thanks a lot for staying with us. Have a lovely weekend. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks
Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
Cesar.